Welcome, one and all, to the Jan Arden Podcast and Show. I'm here with Caitlin Green, Sarah Burke. They are in their respective Toronto homes for this hallowed eve. Scary, frightening podcast. No, this isn't going to be frightening. We have the greatest guest ever. We have had so much feedback from this particular woman. So many people have contacted this particular woman after we have spoken to her to get special readings. Without any further ado, this is a friend of mine. She is a fellow Calgarian. She's got two beautiful daughters. She's got an amazing house wedged between these giant, like, high rises in downtown Calgary. I don't know how you've done it. There's this beautiful cottage. You look like the gingerbread cottage. Kim Dennis. I just wanted to say that because whenever I've gone to your house for readings, whenever I drive up, it's so idyllic. You've got the white picket fence. You've got this house, this beautiful house with stone and wood, and it's right like smack downtown in the middle of apartment buildings. How have you managed that?
That my house was built originally in 1888.
This doesn't surprise me.
Pardon me?
This doesn't surprise me.
It's funny you say that. The day I went to look to buy a house, I had a real estate agent and he had a few houses lined up. And I was having my morning tea and I opened the paper just to see what was there. And that was the first thing I saw was this house. And right away, I said to him when I saw him, I said, I want to go see this house. So we saw two others and I just sort of saw them and I knew as soon as I walked in the door that this was the house for me. But yeah, it was built in 1888. That's where all the old heritage homes are in downtown in the Beltline of Calgary. But yeah, I love it here. It has a wonderful energy, wonderul vibe.
We have to ask, was there anything calling you to this house? Anyone?
Probably, but maybe what you might want to know is that I love genealogy as well too. And I did a land title search on the house just to find out exactly how old it was. And it was 1888. But I've been here almost 20 years. And shortly after I moved in here, I was coming down the stairs about 3:00 in the morning and this little girl in spirit ran past me on the stairs. And it was so real that I felt the lace or crinoline of her dress up against my leg. And at that time, my young girl, Brenna, was still living at home. She was 13. I thought, where the heck is she going? And she just dissipated at the top of the stairs. And she had like a Little House on the Prairie dress on. And she had big Nellie Olson curls, but it was brown hair. I know. And she would never look at me, but she would run past me and she would giggle. So long story short, I've seen her probably 8 or 9 times. And the last 2 times I saw her, I kind of called out to her and I said, what's your name, honey? What's your name? And she either said Flory or Flora. So in 1911, George and Catherine Bryant lived in my home and they had 5 children. One was Florence. So I kind of suspect it's her. And the last 2 times I saw her, it was in my basement. I was doing laundry. And she had a man with her. It wasn't scary or anything. It kind of caught me off guard, but it was probably her dad.
Kim, if you were to explain yourself to people, how would you describe what it is that you do? I think it's really important to kind of establish that out of the gate.
Yeah, I guess I'm a medium. A medium is the person sort of between this world and that world. I tap into a higher vibration. I'm probably technically more clairaudient, sort of like a golden retriever or something. I can tap into a higher vibration. I think they lower theirs somewhat, the spirits on the other side, and I can tap into a higher vibration and I can hear them talk. I can see them and I can feel them as well too, but I mostly hear them when I'm doing a reading. It's just like a conversation going back and forth. Yeah, I almost sometimes feel like if somebody was hearing impaired and I'm using my hands to kind of commute and give messages. I'm kind of the person in the middle. I guess that's where the meaning comes from. Plus, I've done so much studying on spirituality and stuff. I'm not expert, but people come to me for 2 primary reasons. They want to contact a loved one and their life isn't going in the direction that they want it to go in. So I try and help them with spiritual guidance. I can't fix anybody's life, and I can't heal anybody, but I hopefully can make triggers that'll help them self-heal, whether it's something physical or emotional, which I think they're all connected, to be honest with you, and sort of tell them how to, with their thoughts, there's lots of ways with their thoughts, how to create a better life.
You help me a lot.
Oh, I hope
with my dad's mom.
Who's Evan or Owen or something? I've had that name. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It's my grandfather.
Is it? Is it Evan or Owen?
It's my grandmother's husband.
Is it? Yeah, I kind of had that when I was setting up and whatever. Is it Evan or Owen? I can't.
Owen.
Owen. Okay,
Owen.
That's your grandfather. Yeah, I kind of feel like he's been my friend. He's kind of been hanging around. He's kind of a charming guy.
I never met him. Obviously, I think he passed away in 61. I was born in 62. But you said about my grandmother, whom I always kind of was scared of. She was very religious. But I loved her music. She played piano and she was a very church like, oh, da, 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 da. But I remember sitting beside her big round body. She was about 4'11", 250 pounds. And, she was quite frightening, but she had like 55 grandchildren. So it was a lot to deal with. But anyway, I remember her telling me that I was one of her favorites but she was kind of scary. And you said to me, Karina's here, Kelowna. It's a weird name, Jan. You said it's a weird name. And I kind of let you just go out there. And I said to you, Krilla? And you said, yes, it's Krilla. That was her name.
Wow. Yeah,
and you said that she said, please tell Jan I did the best I could with what I knew at the time. And it really changed the trajectory of how I thought about my dad's mom, because her husband, Owen, died very young. He was 57, 58, which made my dad leave home at 14 years old. It changed everybody's lives, what happened to him. Yeah, and they were broke, and she was a school teacher, and I always wanted to be a school teacher. But anyway, thank you for that, Kim. So when you talk about changing people's lives through this dialogue, and it's not what people think. To me, that's a relatively simple sentiment. It was a sentence. I did the best I could. And it's not like, ooh, and the table fucking lifts off the ground and the lights go out. That's not my experience with you as a medium. It is so practical and helpful.
I try to take the paranormal out of it. It's fun. It's fun, the paranormal part a little bit in Halloween, but that's what I really try to do is I try to bring it down to earth, so that it isn't as spooky, as not as paranormalish, that you can build a different relationship with your loved one once they cross over, that they're not as gone as we think that they are, that they do walk with us. And I kind of narrow that gap a little bit so that you can build a different relationship and you don't feel that they're as gone as we may feel when they first cross over. So, and I ask them, and they do give me little things that there's no way I would know, that there's no way that I would know, could look up or anything like that, to let them know that they're there with them. And a lot of that with grief and stuff, I mean, grief changes over time, but it can trigger healing as well too, is what it is. It's like, oh my gosh, they really are there with me. And I try to make it tangible. That part of us that always feels young, no matter how old you are, that's your soul. That's the real you. And that's tangible for people in the physical world. You never hear anybody in their 20s say, oh, I still feel like that same young person. I remember my gramps, when he was 90, said he still felt like the same young soldier on the inside, right? And I said, you are. So that part of you is always young, always feels like you're in your 20s, the prime of your life. And people in the physical world can identify with that.
Yeah.
They can identify with that. It was like, is that what that is? Yeah. And when you say you're talking to yourself, who are you talking to? You're talking to your soul. You're talking to yourself, to your soul, to your spirit. And I think a lot of people get a little bit confused. And I mean, with spirit guides, your spirit and soul is the same thing, just a different word, like a million different words for karma, right? Mm-hmm. So your spirit guide is your soul. It guides you, and it guides you through your feelings. And I try to tell people, stop thinking so much, right? Stop thinking too much. All the answers about you are inside of you, all the guidance, right? And if you can't hear it, then you're just thinking way too much. So I try to get people more in touch with that. I love that they come to me for help, but you can't always be there. I used to do this with my kids. They're like, oh, I remember my one daughter coming downstairs and saying, I said, what's your problem? She says, well, I don't really feel ready for that test tomorrow. Because you're not. And I'm like, well, that's what you feel. I said, you got a choice. You either go and study more or call it a night and do the best you can. But you are being told that you're not ready for that test tomorrow. So whether it's a big thing or a small thing, I try to tell people that all the answers about you are inside of you. Might not always be what you want to hear. But a spirit guide is not a separate entity. It's not something that walks with you. People think that about spirit guides, that it's some separate entity, and that we all have guardian angels. I think guardian angels are like calling 911. That's why you always hear that they show up when you're having trauma or something's going wrong in your life.
Girls, I really want to hear your questions for Kim.
Mm-hmm. Well, something that I've asked some mediums who I've had the good fortune of speaking with kind of over the years, whether that was in radio or just in my own personal life, but is, a lot of people ascribe the meaning of signs in their life. So sequential numbers, or a certain song comes on right when you're thinking about someone. Just those little moments. And like you were saying, I think it can be hard for some people to access this type of information about themselves and an openness. But those little tangible moments, I think, create ways that people become more curious about it. So when you see 1111 or 444, and do you think that there is meaning behind those things, that there are any messages, and what people can like kind of take from those little like inkling moments?
Great question. So a couple things. There's our loved ones reaching out and connecting with us, and there's law of attraction as well too.
Yeah.
So if you say to yourself, gee, every time I look at the clock, it's 11:11 or 2:22 or 3:33, done. The universe, every time those numbers come up around you, you're going to be drawn to look at them, whether you're in the car, whether you're whatever, because that's what you said. Start saying $1 million. Now, if you'll attract that in, well, you will. It does take the universe no more effort to manifest a cup of coffee or $1 million. So it could be that as well too. That said, if it does have a particular meaning to, this particular time is when a loved one crossed over or something like that, sure. But more times than not with the numbers thing, you see it a couple times. You're like, gee, every time I look at the clock, it's 3:33, but it doesn't really take you to anybody who's crossed over. That's law of attraction. That's how much power you have to create stuff in your life. That said, there is lots of different ways, like songs and smells and stuff. And it's not a thinking thing. It'll just take you there. It'll take you there. My dad crossed over 20 years ago, and he was a mechanic. And lots of times I'll think of him, start my car, and there's Johnny Cash, like all in the same moment, right? So without a doubt, that's my dad letting me know that he's there with me in the car. Dimes, it used to be pennies from heaven. Okay. It used to be pennies from, we don't make them anymore. So dimes, but the connection is that you won't have to think about it. All of a sudden your grandma will be in your mind, or your dad, or your brother who passed away, or whatever. You won't have to do the work, the thinking. Or often they'll run into your thoughts, and then something will happen. Right. All of a sudden, then you'll find a dime, or then a certain song comes on the radio, or then my grandmother, who was British, I'll smell lavender sometimes. Right. And I'll think about her all at the same time. So if it just takes you there, it's not a thinking thing. And when it takes you there, stay there, because you can talk yourself in and out of anything, because it's not really tangible most of the time. Right. But yeah. So with the numbers thing, I think that's more times than not law of attraction. I used to read for this old gal. She was adorable. She thought every time she went for a walk and looked at a street light, it would go out. I'm like, really? You got better powers than I do. Yeah, she was so cute. But I do believe that because she believed that whenever one was going to go out, she would be drawn to look at it, and she would see it. That's how much power we have. Always talk to yourself like you already have something. And when you say, gee, every time I look at the clock, it's 3:33, you're making a statement. Like, do that with everything. And that's why you're drawn to those numbers.
Do that with everything. I like that. The intention of you bring into your life what you cast, the net that you cast, and what you want to attract into your life. And we see that all the time.
We're a reflection of what we believe is possible in our lives. And if you feel limited, you're just doing that with your thoughts.
But we know people in our lives, don't we, Kim, that do that all the time. They're kind of harbingers of doom. It's like, womp, womp, womp. And, things don't turn out for them. And you kind of want to grab their shoulders and go, you reap what you sow. And there's so many catchphrases that are exactly saying that same thing.
If you don't like what's going on in your life, you better look at what you're putting out and what you're expecting. And if you're focusing on what you don't want in life, or in a relationship or whatever, you're going to attract that in. The universe doesn't understand if you want something or not. So if you saying, if you want a relationship, I don't want this in a person, you just made a list of all the things you want, you're going to get. So whatever you put your focus on and your attention on is what you're going to draw into your life. And the universe does not understand a joke either. So if you start telling yourself, at this rate, I'll be working when I'm 80. They didn't know that was a joke. Unless you want to be, stop saying that. You'll be working when you're 80 years old. So that's a lot of times what we don't want shows up, because that's all we talk about. It's too, like with healing, or with when somebody's ill, no matter what the illness is, you never be in denial about your health. Never. That doesn't get you anywhere. But you always do it the Irish way. You always say, I'm healing, I'm healing, I'm healing. Right? All right. Thank you for my healing. I am in perfect health. You focus on where you want to go. Denial gets you nowhere. nowhere. But you all, like, if you had no money, you wouldn't keep saying, I'm broke, wanting to bring money into your life. So you always, you know where you are, but you always focus on the end result. And never mind, it's never your job to figure out how something comes to you. That's how you manipulate the universe. Yeah, it's there. Who cares? It's like that's their job. You just put it out there. You see where you are, and you put all the feeling you can into the end result, and the universe will take care of the in between part.
Sarah, question?
Well, first, is there anyone with us?
I was
right
thinking
now?
of your grandma. I was thinking of a grandma. Yeah, I just kind of felt like a grandma. I don't know. She was like, I don't know. I feel like she was like quick-witted or something like that. I don't know. I just really like her. She was like snappy or something. So I was kind of thinking of, and I feel like there's a young man I've been kind of feeling around as well too. So
Is this okay?
yeah.
So I had a reading with Kim after the last time we had her on, and you told me this specific person was hanging around my desk area. Is it the same person?
Yes. Actually,
Okay.
roof stuff. I don't get that. I don't see that very often, but I see stuff being shifted.
Sarah,
I don't know if you have a very
see
well
something
organized
behind
desk
you
or whatever,
No.
but I just see like kind of messing it up a little bit. So
Kim had said to me, this is someone that's not quite like grandparents' age, but like maybe older. So my mom's brother passed like many, many years ago now. And he was super techie. I had no idea. But when I first started working with Jan, when you were on maternity leave, Caitlin, I had a setup that kept disconnecting. Remember how annoying it was?
It drove me crazy.
Yes. It was like for like the first month I was working with Jen, I was like, sorry, my thing disconnected. So Kim said to me on the phone in the reading, he says your new setup is going to work much better. And I had just bought what I'm using now. That week.
That's it. Yeah, I get him. Yeah, I think he passed around
my uncle. He definitely had a like 6 month, 7 month really bad end of cancer.
This is kind of odd, but I see a trash can turned upside down. I don't know what that is. Somebody just like knocked a trash can over or something like that.
Is it the dog?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I just saw something that looked like a trash can knocked over or something.
We'll have to ponder that. But
Yeah.
one just takeaway from a reading with Kim, and if there's a clairvoyant in your life, or if you book a reading with Kim, I was someone who was really scared of this stuff before. I was totally creeped out, especially because I live alone. And Kim and Jan, you might remember, I had this light that kept going on. And, eventually figured out, I think it's my grandfather on my dad's side, my dad's dad. And, it was almost like the joke of like how persistent he was. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to show you it's actually me. Like I could feel the like comedy of it in him.
Yeah.
And
You can feel the personality.
And he made a light turn on in my kitchen after that one, because I was like, no, it can't be. Because Kim just said when you ask for someone to show, like they will, even when you don't think it's them. And the fact that I was standing, this is a light that you have to touch to turn on. It has 3 settings. It goes, dim, then middle, then bright. I'm in the kitchen, nowhere near touching the light, and this light goes on. It's freaky when you live alone, right? So this light has been on and off all year, the whole time since I've met you, Kim. And my mom never really believed this stuff. My dad has been like kind of curious. It happened while I was on FaceTime with my mom last week. And she was like, oh!
Thanks for that. Making her a believer.
Yeah. So we're getting her to come around. But yeah, I wanted to just ask about like with Halloween and people who might be scared, going back to that idea of this idea. How do you reframe it as like, no, like anything that is around is like part of your path almost?
It is. It's just, well, I just sort of say Halloween is a fun time. It is. It's just a fun time for ghosts and witches and all this kind of stuff. It is. But just kind of separating that there is nothing scary. I was talking to somebody earlier today. I've been doing readings for over 25 years. Not once has anybody ever come to me for a reading and said that they had a spirit connect with them and hurt them in any way whatsoever. Maybe catch them off guard, maybe scare them a little bit, but never ever did anything to hurt them. Anything. Yeah. So that's why I really do try to take the paranormal out of it. But it's kind of fun. I live there's a family with 7 kids across the street. And when they come trick-or-treating, I'm like, you want to hear a ghost story? Come on in. And they're like, no, she means it. Don't just eat the candy and run. Yeah. I'm like, I'll tell you a ghost story. So I try
But have you been scared?
As well too. But there's really nothing paranormal about it.
Have you been scared in the past?
Me? Mm-hmm. Not really, not of a spirit or anything. You mean of a spirit or anything? No, I've been caught off guard. Like I've been startled, like turn around and saw somebody or whatever, but never been scared. No, always kind of always felt, yeah, I've gone into a trance a couple times where I've connected with people in a different level as well too, but nothing ever really scary, but I always just feel fortunate and say thank you. I'm just like, I don't know why I can do this, but I don't know why a lot of things, I don't know how law of attraction works either. I just know that it does, right? So yeah, so I'm just grateful, but no, it's never been harmful or anything like that.
How do you feel about people who ignore their intuition? Because I find that to be an interesting part of a lot of people's lives, is that even when I'll just give you an example of, you're standing in front of an elevator, there's 3 men in the elevator. You ignore fear, you ignore the fact that I don't want to get into this elevator, and you override the intuition, or you override the gift of fear, which to me is intuition as well. Why do and I find that women do that a lot. There's always that whole thing about women's intuition. We don't hear the stereotypical sayings about men's intuition. It doesn't come into that. Maybe it's part of the witchy coven nature of how women have been healers and thinkers and leaders and spiritual people. But yeah, why do we ignore intuition?
Well, intuition is it's just like intuition, spirit guide, gut, knowing. It's all the same thing, just in different words. So I don't, because sometimes it's not what you want to hear, and people don't trust it as well too. And if you can't hear it, you're thinking too much, right? So thinking is way louder than feeling. So
what do you mean about thinking too much, Kim? Like,
pardon me?
What do you mean by thinking too much?
Well,
like, what am I going to do at the office?
So,
why do I have these bills? What about is like thinking too much? What
does
that mean?
If you do that, you're not going to get anywhere. It's like worrying is like praying for stuff you don't want, right? So you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Well, yeah, you actually do. If you calm down, let it go, distract yourself or whatever, then that's why they said it's like, I don't know what to do. Yeah, you do. You just can't hear it, because all the mind chatter and the noise of the world will drown out that inner voice or your gut or your instinct or your knowing if you let it. And as soon as somebody's distracted or lets it go for a minute, like, oh, there's the answer. I'm like, it was always there. You just couldn't get to it. See, most of the time what we think and feel is the same thing. It looks good, feels good, looks bad, feels bad. But if you're ever thinking one thing, but start getting a different feeling, the universe has your back, right? Always go with the feeling. No matter if it's big or small, even if you're buying a used car, maybe it all checks out, but it doesn't matter what it is. It just isn't sitting right with you. The universe has the bigger picture. They're protecting you, but you have a choice whether to listen or not. Right. And either you listen and you go, I don't know, just something doesn't feel right, I'm going to leave it. Right. Or you go like, I'm just going to poo-poo it and not listen, and you get it. And then the tires fall off on the way home. It's like, I knew something. We've all had moments where we knew we should or shouldn't have done something. Right. All you do with those moments is learn from them and listen next time and listen next time. So if you kind of get that all the answers are inside of you, that's why when I feel a little bit overwhelmed, it's my sign to go sit down on the couch or relax or whatever, have a cup of tea. And then and I do that in the morning, and I'll just sort my day. It'll sort my day out. People don't listen to it. I don't know. I don't think they realize that that's really the voice of God, source, your soul talking to you. Yeah, that's where all the answers. You never have to guess your way through life. Some people, it's not what they want to hear, but that's the way it is. But I don't know why they don't. You would think after a while you would you realize that that's where all the answers are about you. But I don't know why some people don't listen to it. And then they think, I knew it. That's where it comes. I knew I should have done that. I knew I shouldn't have done that. Yes, you did know. You did know, and you didn't listen. Fair enough. We're all here to learn. Just listen next time.
If you wanted to contact or be contacted by someone who had crossed over, if you do you need to say out loud, like, hey, grandma, I'd love to hear from you? Or it's thinking about it in a positive way enough? Because some people want it, but I don't know that they know how to invite it into their lives.
If they come for a reading, they just usually show up. A lot of people come with the intention. It's like, I hope my mom comes or my grandma comes or something like that. It's just kind of a natural thing that they'll sort of say and talk about, but you don't have to do that. And I try to tell people, I try to remember, it's like anybody can show up. Usually who you want, if your mom, your dad, or whatever, usually who you want to show up will. But I always say, open up to the possibility of anybody who's been in your life. Maybe you had a great teacher, a great neighbor, good friend or whatever. Anybody can show up. Yeah.
Will you censor bad news from people?
I tell them everything I get.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. That's what they're coming to see me for. I charge for most readings, so that I tell them whatever I get. That said, I don't get a lot of bad news. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. I want people to come to me, but I do tell them. Whatever it is I'm getting. Because I feel
Okay.
like if they're bringing me the message from the other side, this person needs to hear it. So it's not up to me to filter it or whatever. That's not my job. I try to find a way to ease it a little bit or
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, yeah.
If I'm very into astrology, and I'm just because it's sort of like, I find it to be sort of like adjacent to all of this type of
Yeah, it's
spiritual
all
stuff.
connected.
Do you feel like you're into astrology? Do you feel like chart readings are accurate and that, the signs do have some identifying qualities with people?
I don't know much about it, but I believe there's something to it for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
I know I'm a Capricorn. But and I know a little bit about the traits. My younger daughter is actually quite interested in astrology,
Yeah.
whatever. But
Yeah.
I do believe there's something to it. All kinds of stuff. Like I love Feng Shui. That's my other thing.
Okay.
Don't know that much about it, but I love Feng Shui. I don't have screen doors. I don't have screens on my windows. I love the way the
Okay.
air flows and stuff like that. I mean, my house isn't completely Feng Shui, but I'm interested in that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think there's something to it. Somebody did my chart once. I thought it was quite interesting. Numerology. I have a friend that does that a little bit as well too, and I
Mm.
come out as a number 7, which is a spiritual number. So I'm like, okay, I buy into this.
Cool. Okay.
So yeah,
Mhm.
I think there's lots of see the things. I didn't seek out to do this. I was born this way, right?
Right.
So I never sought out about crystals and astrology and all this other kind of stuff. I didn't. But like I said, I do find Feng Shui kind of interesting because I just like the way energy and air flows and stuff like that. So,
It's
but
what
I think
sold
there's
one of my
something to it.
childhood homes, was that the family who was purchasing it was interested in numerology. They were a Chinese family and they were very into like the numbers. And so the number of our house was so fortunate for them that they were really into it, and they opened the door, and it was apparently a rarity not to have like the stairs go right up and then the front door to then be like a shot
That's Feng
straight
Shui.
through to the back door. Yeah. And so we had all these, in order to get to the back and then go upstairs, it was this circuitous route, and they loved it. They were just like, we're buying it, we don't care, we can make the rest work, but like this house has good feng shui.
Yeah, you know what? Whatever it was, told them
Mm-hmm.
instinctively that whatever that
Yes.
this was their home, that this
Yeah.
was the place for them, whether it was
I
that
think
or whatever. But whatever it was, that reassured them that that was the home for them. All I
it's
had to do was
popular
look at
now
the staircase,
for
and
people to say like vibes. They'll just say someone has a good vibe or a place has a good vibe, or everyone says that now. It's like all about the vibe always. But I do think that that's what they're really trying to put into words, is like something just either has a good energy about it, or a person, or just a feeling that they're getting. And it's that like gut instinct from like
yeah,
inside.
I mean, everything is an energy, right? Everything moves or whatever. I think it's more the vibe is of the people who probably are in it. I think more than anything. I'm not sure if yeah, but you know what? You can walk into work, you can walk into somewhere and nobody's done or said anything. You go, what's wrong?
Yes.
What's up? You just know that the vibe, the feeling, or whatever is different. Or it's like, why is everybody so happy? Who won the lottery? Whose birthday is it, or whatever? It's just like, and nobody has to do or say anything. You just know. I know if you have kids, right? They just walk right past you, and then you're like, what's wrong? What we were saying before, Jan, about sort of women and their intuition and stuff. I can go back to that. Women do have more of a sixth sense, right? They say mother's intuition or whatever. We need that because to protect our young, obviously, because we're not as strong as male, so we need a heads up. So what the universe, God, or whatever, put into the mother bear and tiger, whatever, we have in us as well too. And you don't have to have a child for that to happen. And the other kind of witchy part, or I don't know if that's what you want to call it, is I talked about this a lot at the women's show. Not only are women like carry a child and all that, the soul comes in through us. Right? The egg and the sperm, for sure. We do that, but the soul comes in through us. We're the portal, women, the window from that world to this world. Yeah. So not only do we conceive a child physically or whatever, the soul has to come in as well too. Right? Yeah. So.
Oh, it's pretty magical what goes on out there. And
well, that's why women have the sixth sense and stuff as well too. We can sense danger before it happens. And like I said, we need that so we can protect ourselves.
The gift of fear. That's what I was
fear
saying. It's like,
the gift
there's
of
an
fear.
alleyway that you're going to walk down.
Yes.
It's kind of dark. You want to be brave. You want to talk yourself out of shit. Like, oh God, everything's fine. I'm just being silly. I never override those things anymore, but it's also the gift of age. I used to, when I was 20 or 30, I could be quite cavalier. And so you also have the gift of time, knowledge, accumulated experiences. But I love the idea that I do listen to intuition more.
If
I
someone
wanted to
feels
ask,
off or you feel scared or you never hear it, you never see a child. I always say if a child doesn't feel comfortable around an adult or something, listen to them, because kids just go right by instinct. you know, that they do. If you feel like somebody's off or somebody's creepy
I don't want to be
whatever.
around Uncle Tim. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. You know, if you get a good feeling, bad feeling, or whatever, you know, no matter what somebody's telling you. You want to hear a story? I went to a barbecue. This was years ago, and it was when I was doing a lot of radio. And this gentleman came up to me and shook my hand, and he says, "Oh, I listen to you on the radio all the time." I'm like, "Oh!" As soon as he touched my hand, I almost threw up in my mouth. I did. I was like, "Ooh," and I was like, "What was that?" And I went to my friend who was hosting the barbecue after. I was like, "Who is that guy?" She goes, "Oh, he's a really nice guy. He works with my husband." I'm like, "There's something not good about him, icky, right?" And she was like, "Oh no, he's a really nice guy." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." Yeah. Well, I got a phone call 3 weeks later. Guess who was in jail for domestic violence? Mm-hmm. And she said, "You were right. That's what it was." And as soon as he touched my hand, I threw up on my mouth. And that was a unique experience. But yeah, wow. And it was just like, and 3 weeks later, he was in jail for domestic violence. And she said, "That's what you were picking up on." And I knew, and you don't have to always know everything. I did find out later. You just trust the feeling, right? But I knew right away, even despite of what he was presenting, he seemed like a decent guy or whatever. There was something there's something wasn't right about him. Oh, yeah, I know.
We override that stuff sometimes.
I know.
Too.
Fear is a gift. It's like the universe telling you that something isn't right here, that it isn't right here. So yeah, I don't know. People, I think hopefully are getting more in touch with their feelings. That's what it is. It's your feelings. You can talk yourself in and out of anything, right? Yeah, but your feelings are everything. Your feelings tell you everything. That's it. I used to say to my girls, I'm like, "I don't know what to do." I'm like, "Yes, you do. Yeah. What does it feel like? Does it feel right? Or does it feel whatever?" And I, make them go there or whatever. Yeah. And like I said, it's not always the answer you want, but your feelings are always right.
This is a question that I know that we're going to get, and I want to be preemptive about it. We have talked about this before, and I also have the grace of knowing you for many, many years now, Kim, but where did this all begin? I just would love to hear a little bit about Kim Dennis, young girl. I know that your mom wasn't intuitive, that your grandmother was intuitive, so it kind of skipped a generation there. Your mother wasn't a medium. Your grandmother was, correct?
No, neither of them. I think my mom's dad, my maternal grandfather. Okay. I believe he lived to be 94. He was a beautiful man. I never saw him do anything, but they're British based. So they used to flip him a teacup every once in a while. And I guess every once in a while he would say something profound and knock it out of the park, and so my best guess, if it runs in my family, I probably get it from my English-Irish roots on my maternal grandfather. But I was born this way.
Okay, so but just walk us back a little bit. You're a young child, 7, 8, 9 years old, and what does that experience look like for us?
My first ever indication that I didn't grow up with any religion. So my first indication that there was something more than this physical world was when I was growing up in Scarborough, Ontario. My best friend, Maureen, we were inseparable. She lived across the street from me, but she was a Catholic girl and I wasn't. And the only time we were apart was when she went to school and went to church. And she doesn't remember this, but I asked her, or she told me, I don't know how it started, that if you ask God, that was her word, for something, he'll give it to you. And I was like, she was my best friend. She's Catholic. She goes to church. She would know, right? So I totally believed her. And I started asking for little things at 5 and 6 years old. Like, I don't want to go to the dentist tomorrow. Then it got rebooked. I want my grandma to come and see my new bedroom that we had done. She never came to our house. The next day, my dad was picking them up and bringing them to my house. So it was all these little things. And I was like, wow. Maureen was right. And that was my first indication that there was something more than this world. For 1 year, I'm not sure about this year. I was 8 years old. I had often lucid dreams where I couldn't wake up, but I was between here and that world. But the thing about that year was my parents separated for a year, and that could have been trauma as well too. We lived, I didn't see my father and stuff like that. So that could have been part of it. So, but then to skip to nothing until I'm 13 years old, I come home from track and field early during the week. I'm 13 years old. It's 2:00 in the afternoon, have a sleep, have my first out of body experience. Yeah. And it was the beginning of almost daily, nightly, if I had a nap, daily out of body experiences. And I had so many, and only twice did I go to a higher place. But
so what does that mean? What's the out of body?
What's that?
What is the out of body? Like, what is
I looked like myself, but I was translucent, but I looked just like myself.
Okay.
Like myself. And I had control over my movements. But if I just relaxed myself It's weird. I was drawn to one corner of my bedroom, and then I pull myself back. And this was my first experience. And then I was just drawn to another, and then I would just pull myself back because I didn't know what would be beyond my house. I wasn't really afraid, but I was like, what the heck is going on? And then at some point, I just sort of floated around my room. I would look at myself. I'm like, what the heck? And I was just sleeping peacefully, even though I was not in there. I was just sleeping peacefully. Yeah. And then at some point, my mom opened my bedroom door and I came back into myself, woke up. And that was my first one. And they happen so often. And like I said, I had so many, except for twice, which I believe I visited heaven. All I did was float around my house and stuff like that and see myself sleeping. I had a younger brother, and I remember I would never hear anything. But I remember going into his bedroom, and I could hear his fish tanks. The boop, boop, boop. That's really weird. But that was the only thing I ever heard. But twice I did visit heaven. So long story short, if you want, I can talk about that. But then at 23, I had my first child, Ashley, and they stopped. They just stopped. And I wish I had journaled. I wish I had written this stuff down. And when I look back, I mean, maybe it was I was sleep deprived new mom or what it was, but they stopped. And I was the bank teller for Canada Trust when I went on mat leave. So when she was a toddler, I went back a couple evenings a week. And I have out of body experiences every once in a while, but they kind of stopped. And then the intuition phase kicked in. And then for a number of years, I was just picking up so much useless information, but I had no business knowing it. You know, I knew what my girlfriend, she cut her hand that morning. I was talking to her on the phone. I knew somebody else. I worked in Sunridge Mall in a bank, and I couldn't see the parking lot, but I would sense clients and write down their name, Jan, and you'd walk in the door. I used to play a game with a girl that worked there, and I was like, and she was like, how did you do that? I was like, I don't know. Yeah. And it just got stronger and stronger and stronger until I just couldn't ignore it anymore. And I just said, I don't know what this is or what you want me to do with it or whatever, but you need to show me. And then it just kind of fell into place after that.
It's been an incredible journey. And, you know, you look around at your house and your things and you're raising your children and all those things. You've done that with this amazing gift that obviously you face a lot of scrutiny and you face skepticism.
Yeah.
This is the world in which we live. So
yeah, this isn't
people are always trying to dispel what you do. So how do you deal with that? And I know you and I, and actually the four of us have talked about that before, about skepticism.
Well, you know, I accept a long time ago, this isn't for everybody, just like a lot of stuff. It isn't for everybody. Most people who are skeptics, I charge a fee for readings, so I just don't bother. You know, so most people come, I mean, they can be skeptics. Most people are, I would be too. It's like, okay, let's just see what she does or whatever. That's healthy skepticism, right? I would be as well too. But people who really think that this is a bunch of, you know, nonsense or something like that, they don't usually bother with me. They might put something on my Facebook or something, but people fear what they don't understand. But for the most part, those people just don't bother and seek me out. Every once in a while, I get some poor husband that's been dragged to me because his wife came and wants him, and he really doesn't want to be here. And I'm like, buddy, go out to the truck. You know, this isn't for everybody. But, you know, yeah, I get that. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, this is a scam or whatever. I'm like, guaranteed I haven't read for you. And they're like, no. I'm like, okay. Yeah, well,
you've been pleasantly surprised, I bet, too. You have clients come in, whether they've lost somebody, they're looking for answers. There's a little bit of therapy involved in what you do, which I think is really magical and important too, because like
Thank
I said, it can be a simple sentence, but you can really, really change people's, their trajectory. Have you ever had a reading that is a bust for you, Kim, that you feel like you and the client just did not hit on anything?
For sure. I mean, it doesn't happen very often, but for sure. I mean, it's just some people, personalities don't clash or what. It doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while that there's just somebody that I just can't pick anything up on. But it doesn't happen very often, and I just give them their money back and send them on their way.
Oh,
and sometimes is it that they're not open-minded?
I think so. I don't want to, I mean, I'm not always on the ball, but usually I can reflect and go, well, I did 3 readings today already and they went well and I had no problems. So yeah, sometimes it's a bit of an attitude or something like that. Contradicting to what I said before, usually those people don't say, but some people, I have had some women come in and go, nobody can read me. And I'm like, oh, so it doesn't matter. So they'll just say, you know, you're going to have a hard time. Nobody can read me. I'm like, I'm sure you're very special. But I'm sure you are. But because they kind of declare that they're not going to even kind of filter or
Yeah.
consider anything that I'm seeing. So I do get people like that, not very often, but yeah, they'll tell me that right away. Nobody can read me. And I'm like, well, okay. All right.
Do the relatives of the people who you read, like the people who've crossed over, are they usually trying to send kind of a specific message about the direction of their life or warn them against something, or are they really just trying to be like, hello?
All of the above.
All of the
all of the above.
Okay.
It's all readings kind of have an element of that, all that stuff in it, and some more than others. You know, somebody's coming if they lost their child or whatever, is primarily because I want to hear from their child that crossed over or whatever. You know, but it's all part of it, but just some more than others. So yeah.
Should we ask Kim what we already said that she's going to do for our Patreon people?
What?
We sort of decided we would love to do a contest with you, but we have to run it by you first.
Oh, okay.
Would you consider?
I mean, I will pay for the reading. But I
don't
was
be
hoping,
silly.
No. I would, because for whatever. And I already said this to the girls on a call a few days
and
ago.
our entire audience.
I would love to pay for the entire audience.
I'll donate one.
Well, I was just going to say, but I'll donate to you, and you donate to whoever you want.
Yeah,
but we
would
would love for our Patreon people to have a chance to have an opportunity to have a reading with you, like maybe something special for Halloween.
Sure.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You don't have to pay me or anything.
We will talk and we will figure that out.
If you feel like you'd do something, donate something to an animal charity or something. But,
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, but don't. No, you don't. It'd be my pleasure to do that.
No, well, we love having you on the show. You know that, and I would be remiss if we didn't ask you about the event that you have coming up. I know about it because obviously I'm following it on social media as well. But my friend Nadine, who looks after Poppy for me, her dear friend Darlene, are both going to see your event. So tell us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, the Deerfoot Casino. Yeah, Deerfoot Casino. Yeah, October 30th through 103.
Ooh, good date.
.1. Yeah, they're putting it on for me. So all the proceeds, there's a small percentage going to the casino, but most of the proceeds are going to the Veterans Food Bank. So I'm not taking a fee for it or anything like that. I'm donating my time. So yeah, it's October 30th. You can go onto their website to get tickets if you want. And like I said, it's I think it's $33 and change, and $3 is going to something, but the $30 is going to the Veterans Food Bank. So yeah. So they said,
what does that look like? You have a couple hundred people?
Or animal charities. What's that?
Couple hundred people show up?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, tickets sale. Yeah, it's selling. I have to check in with Sam and just see how.
I'm trying to understand what you would do on a stage, like when you're doing something like this. Like,
I'll pick out people.
Do you like pick people from the audience? Okay.
Yeah. That's what I do when I do the women's show and stuff. I'll just pick people out. They're going to be in the audience as well too. So I haven't got. They'll probably, if people want to ask a question or not.
Is
everybody.
It a cacophony?
Not everybody.
Like,
not everybody wants.
Shit coming at you like
too many spirits.
There is. Yeah, but but they seem to be able to. I don't know. They got it together up there way more than I do. But yeah, when I
they help you select
stuff, they usually it's just like I can hone in for the most part. So yeah,
very cool. And do you tell like a scary story to kick it off or anything?
I said to them, I was like, I got so many stories. I got a real cool one for Remembrance Day. I don't know if you guys have time or whatever.
I would love that. Why don't we leave with that? Because
let's wrap with
that. And once again, I want to say Kim Dennis, you can go on to her Facebook. It's Clairvoyant Kim on her socials. And please, if you're not in the Calgary area, I believe Kim is quite happy to do things by phone. I'm telling
Spirits
you,
can be anywhere at any time.
Yeah, the telephone readings work really well.
Yeah, just make sure you do that. It's a great gift, and for people that you think need that little lift.
It is. I hope I trigger healing and to help them heal, recover from trauma or from a loved one's crossing over or whatever. Yeah, that's what I. Yeah.
So story time.
Okay.
Kim Dennis.
So back in May, I'm doing a reading for out of town out by Red Deer, and these two sisters come for a reading. So, and in the reading, they sit together. Their mom had passed away just recently, and in the reading, I don't remember all of it because I didn't know it was going to be this significant. But I get a soldier and I get medals, a soldier and medals. And at first they're like, it's not really jiving, and then they go, oh my gosh, and I'm like, what? And they said yesterday, the day before. Which was May 28th, they said they were their dad's still alive. They were cleaning out their mom's desk and they found these medals with a document in them. Right. And they turned to their dad and said, whose medals are these? And he said, oh, I forgot about that. Around 1965, your mom found them on a Greyhound bus in Calgary. Right. So there's medals and there's a document. Right. So so I said to them, I was like, no charge, but I love genealogy. I said, they would wanted to find the owner of them, right? So I said, take a picture of them, send it to me, and I'll see what I can do. So the document said Alan John Mantle on it. And I just figured on the side of the medals it said AJ Mantle, right? So I figured that they were both the same person. So I get this Alan John Mantle, and he was in the Merchant Marine in Australia. So I go on Ancestry. He was born in England, and I trace him, and I and what I find is I find his wife, who's 99 years old, still alive in Australia. Yeah, and I call her. So she says, I said, I'm calling from Canada. I give her all this, and so then she's like dumbfounded. I said, he was born in England and in Australia. I said, was he in Canada in the 60s? And she kept saying he could have been anywhere. So I don't know what that meant, but she kept saying he could have been anywhere. So later that day, it's Australia. Her son phones and he says, we're, gobsmacked. He just says that you have these medals and stuff. So I sent him a copy of it, a photo. He phones me the next day and he says, I don't think these are my dad's. He said he was never in the Canadian military. And I said, the middle one's an honorary one. So a lot of the Merchant Marines, they weren't really military. They go around and help the allies who needed help in the Navy. So I said, he may have got that. My cousin's in the military. He kind of filled me in. And he's like, gee, and he said the spelling of Alan is different. And I'm like, well, that can happen as well too. So he's convinced it's not. So then I go back to the medals and I send them off to the History Museum, a picture of them, and they're World War I medals of an Arthur John Mantle. And the document's an Alan John Mantle. The Arthur John Mantle is from the First World War. There's 3 medals, and the middle one was a voluntary one from volunteering in the Second World War. So I found out that the document actually did belong to the guy in Australia. That's on its way there. So then the medals, this guy, Arthur John Mantle, he didn't have any children. I tracked him down. And anyways, I found his niece, who's 97 years old in Bolton, Ontario. Yeah, and like the medals were returned to her. Oh, right? Wow. They returned to her. So yeah. And there's a couple things. The funny thing is they came to see me on May 29th, right? And they found the medals on May 28th. Alan John Mantle's birthday is May 28th. 1920, so it was actually his 104th birthday. Goosebump City. It was actually when I first made the first connection. The next thing I got to do is neither family know each other. So Alan John Mantle doesn't know anything about an Arthur John Mantle, and Arthur John Mantle's family doesn't know about Alan John Mantle in Australia. So my next project, when I get 5 minutes, I'm going to build a family tree for both of them and see if they're connected some way.
It's so strange that document with the same last name would be with those medals.
I know.
Yeah.
So Alan John Mantle was in the Second World War, and he was born in England, and he immigrated at 5 to Australia, and he joined the Merchant Navy. Yeah, so we don't know why. We get the Arthur John Mantle, he lived in Calgary and he lived in BC, so that makes sense. But why is this document with a guy with a similar name from the Second World War? And neither family know each other.
That's weird.
But there has to be a connection.
I'm mind boggled that you're fucking these women that are 97 and 99 years old.
I know. 97
that are like what the hell?
I know. I know. She's like in Bolton, Ontario. Her husband was the pharmacist there. How I tracked it down, I found an obituary, right? And I phoned the funeral home and I said, do you know Becky Smith, right? I don't think she reminds me of saying her name. She was like, oh yeah, her husband was the pharmacist. She lives up the hill. And I'm like, really? And she's like, yeah, she's still alive. So that was the closest next to kin. The girls, the sisters mailed off the medals and they have them. And Becky gave them to her son who was in the military as well too. So they found their home. That's from 1964 or 65. They were sitting in a drawer.
But it's almost like the Mantle boys needed your assistance.
Well, as soon as I
facilitate whatever this was.
The first little search I did on Alan John Mantle, because that was the name I had. I was like May 28th, and that was the date that they found them, which was the day before. They come to me on the 29th for a reading, and then this unfolds. So
the date thing is weird too, because like our son passed away, and he passed away on the same day that my grandmother's firstborn son did in Toronto.
No such
So
thing as a coincidence. I don't know why everything
none.
happens the way it does, but I don't believe in luck and I don't believe in coincidences.
And I never
So
knew that. And then my mom, or my grandmother, lost her first son. I think he was 4 years old, and it wasn't really talked about much like back then. And so the family didn't really speak about it that much. And then when our son passed away, everyone in the family was in a group chat, and one of my aunts made the connection and said, "That's the day John died," because they're from PEI, and he was brought to Toronto for heart surgery, and he died in the operating room. And so all my aunts start piecing this together and going like, "Oh my gosh."
yeah.
And they waited like 6 months to tell me, because they were like, "We don't want to overwhelm her." But that date thing is strange. And the other thing was, our son who passed away, his name was Sam. And we did a genealogy thing. We flew out to see my husband's grandmother in Edmonton, and she keeps records of everything, like has it all. So she did a genealogy pull on their family, Bodnarchuk, so her husband's family name, and they date all the way back to Ukraine. I think it was like, sometime in like the 1700s. Like they went pretty deep. The first ancestor of Bodnarchuk's name, the first person they could find where it all starts, is Sam Bodnarchuk.
It's cool.
And we didn't know that. And his
That's also my grandfather's name, just saying.
Oh, really? It's a great name.
Sam.
And his grandmother said to us, "I thought I told you that." Like, she's like, "I thought you knew that. I thought you knew this was like a piece of the family's history."
That's
and
very
we said
cool.
we had no idea. Yeah. So those things do happen.
They do. And like I said, you don't always have to know what the reason is, but I don't believe in coincidence or luck.
No,
I just want to say,
neither.
one of the best things I ever found out doing my family tree was that my third great grandfather is Samuel Partridge. So I'm really a member of the Partridge family. So yeah, that was my thing. I was like, I was just like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So I'm a member of the Partridge. And I have 2 second cousins once removed who are brothers who are on the Jack the Ripper list.
No way.
Yeah, look them up. Daniel and John McCarthy. Wow. Yeah, they're my second cousins.
We talked about that on one of our episodes, Caitlin. We can get you caught up there too.
Okay.
Yeah, they're 2 brothers. They own lodging houses. In fact, one of them went down and found Mary Kelly's body. She was the only one that was found in a residence, and the other ones were found on the street. But 2 of the other victims lived in the lodging house. Were Daniel. So both of them own lodging houses. I don't think it's them. I think it's that American guy. But they are on the Jack the Ripper list.
Holy
shit. Crazy.
That's a very bizarre part.
All that
of your
stuff
lineage.
is very that stuff is all very interesting to me, because I do believe there's something to it.
Yeah. I think we keep coming back and redoing this.
Is connected. What's
like I do too. I just think I really believe in reincarnation. I think there's just been too many unbelievable stories of people that are still hooked onto that grid that come back as 5-year-olds, and they're like, my sons live in Romania, and I need to get back to them. They're like, they're like 50-year-old men.
Mm-hmm.
I read for this lady years ago. I wouldn't know her, but she said that when her daughter was little, for about 1.5 years, she said about 4 or 5 times, she just kind of looked at her odd and said the same thing to her. She said, "I had another mummy before you. She had red hair, and her and my brother died in a house fire." She was remembering a past life.
I know.
She was. Her daughter at the time she came to see me was like 15 or 16. She said she doesn't remember any of it. But she told her that same scenario. And she was like, "I had another mommy before you. She had red hair, and her and my brother died in a house fire."
That's so specific.
It's so specific.
Like a kid's not going to lie
and she
about
was.
that.
She was. They're so fresh from the other side as well, too.
Yes.
That's why they can see them. Kids, usually around 4, it tends to fade.
I feel like dogs can see
spirits
too.
They have better senses. Sure, they can.
When you're like, what is this dog looking at? And why is it so fixated? And who is here?
Yeah.
Are you talking to my Zadie?
Yeah, that's it. They do.
Yeah.
Cats, all animal cats just don't usually react, right? Yeah. So, but dogs can be pretty reactive. Actually, I saw my cat was doing this, was playing with something, and there was nothing there. I remember doing that, and I'm like, "Yeah, what are you doing?" Yeah, and I could just, I don't know what she was, but she could see something. Yeah. But pets do. Yeah, they just have better senses.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I hope we stay open to the really whimsical, unexplainable possibilities of our lives, because it's going to make them a heck of a lot easier going forward.
The possibilities are limitless.
I think to live in a world that is so static, it doesn't behoove any of us to stay in a place where whimsy and magic and angels and all those things, and you don't have to be religious. I'm not religious.
I'm not religious at all.
I
believe in a higher power. I think once you've wrapped an identity around it, the planet starts to divide. They all think God's on their side. So, I mean, I believe in a higher power. call it whatever you want.
It's just
Well,
not fun to live that way, to be like so closed
not-
off to all that
you're
stuff.
right.
That's the only way I can describe it. Is I'm like, I don't know how else to put this, but like, it's just way less fun and enjoyable to walk through the world without any openness to any of that.
Yeah.
I just hope the best for others. I mean, we're all
Mhm.
connected. You know, let everybody be who they want to be and be happy in their life, because we are all connected. You know, even if one person like myself or you change from a bad mood to a good mood, you shift the vibration of the universe. So can you imagine if everybody was living the life they want, nobody was judging them, just leaving them alone, everybody was at peace? Oh my gosh, that affects everybody. That affects everybody, because we are all connected. We are all connected. We are. So let people be who they want to be. Let them find their own peace, their own joy, or whatever, because it does affect us. And it's just like negativity as well too. That's contagious as well. But it does, even if we're so connected. If you change your mood, you change the course of the universe.
Yep. Well, we're going to leave it there, Kim Dennis.
Okay.
That's a perfect place to
Lovely talking to
bid you
you.
a fond farewell. It's such a pleasure. I always learn something. I know the three of us, just
Thank you
whenever
very
we
much.
have you, we just talk about it for weeks. And then she said this, and it reminds us of our own stories that are unusual, that we need someone telling us, no, you're okay. You're fine.
Okay.
You know, that's not, but thank you so much for taking time for us. And
My pleasure.
and it's going to be
Happy
a really great.
Halloween.
Yeah. Happy Halloween for sure.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you, and I wish you so much luck on your event.
You
I wish I
too.
was home to
You
go
too.
see that, but you and I are far overdue for another visit.
I was
and
going
a
to
cup
say
of
you need
tea.
to come for a reading. So
I definitely
you
will.
are
But
fine.
on behalf of the girls and I, thanks so much.
Thank you very much
for being cool. And we'll let you know, Patreon folks, about the contest to have a reading with Kim Dennis.
Yeah. Oh,
Clairvoyant
so
Kim.
Yeah.
You can find her on her socials, and you can find her on the Patreon page, and you can find her, of course, in our show notes. So Kim Dennis, thank you so much for spending this time with us. It was absolutely fascinating as usual. We'll see you next time. Toodly-doo.